Hi everybody, welcome back. We're the Bunnyhug Farmers. My name's Tyler Janin. I'm here with my co-host, Dallas Leduc. We got a very special guest today, Matt James, or as many of you might know him as Matt's Builds on TikTok.
Well, I'd like to also thank Matt for coming to join us. This TikTok community that we're all involved in has been a world of fun to be with. And Matt is the king of the lives as far as I'm concerned. He does lives when he's working on machinery. He does lives. He's on the planter. He does lives all the time. And that's just great to show the world how it's done and how it's done, in my mind, also right. So welcome to the podcast, Matt. We'll just pass it over to you and we'll go from there.
Yeah, well, hey, I appreciate you guys having me on. I think I'm the first non-Saskatchewan person on here, so it's an honor. And yeah, that's perfect. Now that I know what one is, that's good, and I really appreciate that. And that's kind of what I've been wanting to do on TikTok is just kind of show the equipment and working on it stuff, and make it seem like not such a daunting task for some people who want to do it necessarily, but haven't tried.
That's one thing you really go into depth in that you really promote on your TikTok account is that maintenance. Maintenance is key. Like you're looking at everything. You're checking every square inch over. Oh, on your versatile tractor. Oh, I got a small crack here. Well, I'm going to grind it out. I'm going to weld it. I'm going to make sure this tractor isn't going to go down when I need it.
Yeah, and that comes from growing up on a farm, and I think there's a previous or older generation kind of, we're working it, and if it breaks, then you fix it. And I'm trying to get, into more of a preventative maintenance schedule. And for me, that looks like, doing those big in-depth visual checks and going over every inch and trying to make sure that it doesn't break down in the field, because that's when we're trying to make our money, right?
Yeah, and it seems to be that our window that we got to get our important stuff done, like seeding, spraying, and harvest. Every year that window, I don't know what it is, but it seems to be getting smaller and smaller every year. So when we are out there, we got to make the most out of our time, and we can't afford breakdowns just with how the cost of everything is, labor, diesel fuel, all our other inputs.
And the only other way to avoid all that maintenance is to run brand new warranted equipment, and somebody is at your beck and call. But in my farm, that's not how that happens. I mean, first of all, I'm an hour away from the nearest dealership, and I don't run much stuff new on warranty. It's besides my drills, everything else is got some age on it. And that means I also have to do maintenance, which is key. If you don't do your maintenance and you don't look over your stuff, you are behind the eight ball. Then you have spent too much time holidaying and not enough time getting your work done.
Yeah, absolutely. I would 100% agree with that. And I'm lucky in our farm situation that my brother, he can take care of the numbers and the books and the planning sort of thing, and I can really focus and deep dive on the equipment, because that's what I'm really passionate about and I love. But I agree, unless if you're buying that new equipment, you can kind of avoid that. But the problem with new equipment is that they're still breaking down, and then it's new and not super common, so sometimes the dealer takes a while to figure it out. But then you get, like, if they don't figure it out in 24 hours or whatever, they're often sending you a combine or giving you a tractor or whatever. But I mean, that's really expensive, and I am trying to get ahead and build something for the future and for my family, and I don't want to pay the dealer.
And that leads us to a good note. Like, obviously, I think you're married, and you've showed your little guy there a few times in some videos. So, explain a little bit about your family and your situation with your dad and obviously your wife and your brother and stuff, and how your farm works.
Yeah, so, I grew up on the farm. I could run through the tree line to the main farmyard, and me and my brother, we'd be always playing on the farm, and we'd be getting into all kinds of trouble, and it was a blast. We absolutely loved growing up on the farm. I do feel a little bit sorry for the employees, because, they'd be filling up a jerry can of gas, and then all of a sudden that jerry can would disappear because me and my brother ran off with it or whatever. But it was a great way to grow up. We had a ton of fun. I left the farm. I always expected that I was going to open up my own custom performance hot rod shop. I was going to build cars, all that sort of stuff. That was my dream. Worked in a shop for a year, and after I got my level 2, and I couldn't do it anymore. It was the same thing every day. I missed farming. It changes with the season, and then, I could be my own boss sort of thing. So,
say you have the hair to work in a hot rod shop.
Yeah, I know. I was born to be, man.
All he's missing is a
Yeah.
giant beard.
Yeah, well, I'm missing a bit of the chin here, so I keep it shaved. But yeah, I hear you there. I've been long hair for a while. One day I'm gonna shave it though, and no one's gonna know what hit him.
Speaking of that, now we're off topic. We'll get back there. But
Yeah.
my hair, it was pre-COVID, was down to my shoulders in length. Not as long as
Yeah.
yours, but down there. And we have dinner theater plays we do here, community fundraiser stuff. And I went from the Friday performance down to my shoulders shaved and like a 3-month big girthy beard that looked like I was a biker. So I went home and 100% bald, bicked, clean shaven, almost unrecognizable even to myself.
Yeah, that is very funny.
And then we find out once we shave my head, I have a massive birthmark on the back of my head. I was born with a full head of hair. I never lost it, and nobody ever knew about this birthmark till I was like, 45 years old.
That is impressive.
But back to the old farming. So it's you and your dad and your brother and a few hired men around there?
Yeah, so then I'm a fifth generation farmer. I think the date that we started was 1889 or something like that. We've got a road named after us, James Farms Road, which is cool. But so yeah, me and my brother, after I decided I didn't want to work in the hot rod shop anymore, he was coming back to the farm, and we talked, and we decided we were going to come back to the farm together. And then it was kind of at that point that we were old enough that, the young guys come into the farm and they've got ideas, they've got things they want to try, they got things they want to, do and change or whatever. But the older generation usually kind of just wants to do it their way, and it's their farm, so they can do it their way. So we kind of came up with the plan that we were going to try and start our own farm. And very much with the help of my dad, like with equipment, and he gave us some land to rent. But so we started our own farm, I think, in 2020, which has been a fantastic journey. Me and my wife got married in 2017, and we got 2 little kids, and now they're growing up on the farmyard that I live on, which is kind of me and my brother's, like where we are based out of. So it's fun, and I love being able to do what we want to do without having to go through the red tape of, hey, Dad, let's do this, or let's try that.
Yeah, that's unique that you're able to do it, with your dad, but also you and your brother are able to do it together. Because, I don't know of many farms, the very small exemption that would ever qualify, that could start on their own from not being a farmer and turn into a farmer. Besides just a glorified little hobby farmer, to be a full-time, 100% good income farm without a family support would almost be, in my mind, impossible. My dad, I come home to farm. I graduated in 95. I was gone on and off the farm a little bit till 97, and Dad's like, I need you to come home. I was welding in Regina. I need you to come home with hired man issues and all that stuff. Come home and let's go farming. And then he said, I talked to Grandpa, and maybe we'll rent a quarter off of Grandpa. That he'll rent a quarter to you, and then you can start from there. And that's how I started. But of course, I started in 97, and poor crop in 97, almost no crop in 98. So I spent a lot of winters in the oil patch trying to make a living after that, because I could make enough money off the farm that I could afford to be at the farm, and my truck payment is made by off-farm income. My drinking money is still off-farm income from the winter to get me through the summer. So
yeah,
there's some of my history. But back to Matt here. You guys farm in a very cool area. Like you are, basically, like you said, I've seen many of your videos there. You're 15 minutes away from Princess Auto and PV Mart. I mean, you're the luckiest guy on the planet.
Yeah, it's really quite handy for working on stuff at the main yard. Not too hard to go get parts.
With being that close to the city, do you see much rural crime out your way?
Yeah, so we've got, my dad's main farm is inside the perimeter, right near Transcona, and we park equipment, we call it the North Piece. We park equipment outside there and whatever, and Every now and then you'll go in there and someone decided to cut all the coolant lines on the old Alice 7080, or they stole a battery out of whatever. So that's kind of been a problem, and we're starting to move equipment elsewhere, so that's not an issue. But then also, the fact that we farm inside the perimeter there, you got all these guys that have pickup trucks in the city, and they come out there and they start driving through our seeded fields, and mudding and stuff in it, and that really ticks me off. That really gets me going.
I think that would tick any farmer off, a freshly seeded field, and somebody decides they want to go have a little bit of fun with a 4-wheel drive truck. But you're probably seeing it on a much higher level than somebody like me or Dallas, who live an hour plus away from a very populated area.
Yeah, and that's kind of like, because we can, like, our land all near the city, that's where stuff gets messed with. But then when, like, our land kind of stretches, we're 25 miles maybe tip to tip, or a bit longer. And the land farther out, we don't usually ever have issues, but right around the city, there's definitely some issues with that every now and then.
So you're kind of in that potato country and whatnot, or is that farther away from you?
No, that's a bit farther away. Like, if you drive out the number 3 or the number 2, kind of like the Cypress River, they've got potatoes out there because it's irrigated, but there's no one in our area necessarily that's doing potatoes, which, potatoes is huge money. I don't know much about it, but no, there's not really anyone in our area doing potatoes.
Okay, well, talking about not knowing much about, you have a video or many videos of working on your planter, and I can speak for myself here, and probably much the same for Dallas. We know nothing about a planter other than there are a lot of maintenance. And what are you doing with your planter? Like, what are you planting?
Yeah, so we bought the planter. For a majority, we would plant beans and sunflowers with it. That is why we got the planter. But then since we had the planter, it allowed me and my brother, when we started our own farm, we wanted to try things. That's what we were all about. Try new things, buy and sell, do whatever we want. But then, trying things, you get to figure out what you like and don't like. So because we had the planter, we did corn for a couple of years, and we've done canola now for 3 years with it. And so we would plant beans, corn, sunflowers, and canola with it, depending what we're putting in that year.
I want to go into a few more details on that, just so, even for myself, obviously. Like, what's the spacings? Is it the same spacings for beans and canola, or do you raise and lower a section, or how does that all work that way? Because, my air drill, I run Batterstad's 12-inch spacings and have for 20-some years. But that planter is a whole new, I guess, now we're talking to the American audience. They're all going, you idiots, a planter does this and this and this and this and this. How come they don't know that? Well, we don't. We're Canadians. A planter is pretty rare out in this part of the world.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say it, because, like, I would consider myself new to planters. We've been using it for maybe 8 years. So there's just so much to learn about them. A lot of guys in the area are running either 20-inch or 22-inch spacing on their planters, which is kind of universal. You can do most crops with that and get away with it. My dad, when he bought this planter, he really wanted to be able to plant 30-inch sunflowers and then do 15-inch corn. So we have a split row planter, so you can lift up every other row and go to 30 inches if you want. So that's what we would do our sunflowers and corn on. But then when you're going into soybeans and canola, you can put down the back row, and then you're on 15-inch, which is nice. I like it, but I would rather probably go to a 20-inch planter, just because then you're maintaining less rows and you're not really giving up a whole lot.
Right. So speaking there, because half of my farm normally every year is canola. When you do the canola, do you have different discs or something you slip in, or is it kind of like, I know nothing. I have Borgo tanks, so I have the meat grinder. I change a little bit on a chart, or on the one tank, I change a few gears out. I go from a 22 to a 15 tooth gear. So literally, I'm learning lots here as we go.
Yeah. So this planter is a hydraulically driven planter, so that is nice because we can change our population in the cab on the go. We're not changing chains to different ratios like you had just been talking about. But then every time you're going into a different crop, you are changing your discs. And with canola specifically, there's a bunch of little extra bits and pieces that you're changing because it's such a small seed that you got to put special things in to take up extra gaps in your disc so you're not leaking out seed. You got to put in a bunch of things in the tank so that you're not pushing too much seed to the rows. There's a bunch of little things you change, but yeah, every time you go to a different seed, you're changing your discs and a bunch of other things. And we had to buy a canola kit, I guess they call it. We went with the Red River Valley canola kit in our planter. It was not super cheap because it came with everything you needed to make it work. But that canola kit paid for itself in the first year by the amount of less seed we were able to seed with using the planter.
So that was going to be my next question for you, because on our farm we've looked into doing a planter, just never been able to eat the cost of one quite yet. And would you say you've cut your seed costs in half, just not having the seed crackage versus using an air drill?
We were not a big canola farm, so I don't have any personal experience of doing canola with the air seeder because we had the planter when me and my brother tried to start doing it. But what's the pounds per acre on a bag that they recommend? What is it, 5 pounds or something? Because we were...
Depends on your seed lot. I think we have some stuff last year that was 4.2 and some was 4.8. So even with the Vaterstat, I try to I shaved everything down to 3.2. But that's about as far as you can shave it on an air drill style like I have, because you'll end up with nicely spaced plants for 10 inches, and then you might have no plants for 10 inches. So
okay, yeah.
I think on the planter, it just rolls out of them probably a metering disc of some sort. So your plant spacing is probably next to exact every time, right?
It is pretty close. It's definitely one of those things that is a learning curve for anyone going from an air seeder to a planter is, getting good at finding the seeds and then being able to consistently determine what kind of population you're putting down in the ground versus what the meter says. Because with canola, what it thinks it's planting isn't necessarily always what it is because it's putting out so many seeds and there's so little. But in the last year that we did canola, we were doing 1.75 pounds an acre because we had done it for a couple years and we were pretty confident with what we were doing.
So what kind of bushels are you seeing at harvest time doing it at that low of a rate? Ballpark. You can give me a ballpark.
Yeah, well, and the bushels at harvest all depends on what kind of year you have, right? But we've had crops, and even like last year, we had a field that did really well. I think it was in the 50s, but then another field, like literally not even half a mile away, it got hammered with rain, and we put less starter on it because I messed up putting up starter, and that field that did 50, I put way more on it, which actually helped because of all the rain. But that field, it did like 8. So it was terrible. It was not a good year for canola for us. But with the planter, you get such consistent spacing and even seed depth and all that I don't know what they say for plants per square meter or whatever it is, but you're always right there pretty close to it, even with maybe still an excess of plants compared to what they would say their ideal is, and that's even at 1.75 to 2 pounds an acre.
No,
So what does your seed rep say, your chemical rep, or whatever, seed rep, I guess, say, like, hey, we're going to take your 4.8 pound seed lot and we're going to drop that to 1.75. Like, do they just come unglued, or you explain to them it's a planter, or they just know more? Because I tell our guys here, I'm dropping it from 4.2 to 3.2, and they're just walking around pulling their hair out and kicking the dog because I've cut the seed rate so much.
Yeah, well, if you talk to I forget who the actual rep would be for the company. They would say you should be going to more pounds per acre, But when we talk with like our agronomist, and we work with a company that's local to the area for like they're our seed dealer, they deal with a lot of guys running planters, doing canola, and they, in this area at least, enough people are doing it that it's not like unheard of or they think you're nuts.
Yeah. And then that leads me to the next question. With the planter, I know when we've grown canola in the past, we've had to put the fertilizer to it. Even for my drier area, we'll still have to be well into the 200s plus range of fertilizer, which is probably nothing compared to what you guys can do out there. But how do you put the fertilizer down with a planter? Is that put on ahead of time, or do you spray it on after? Is it spread? Like, just give us a little bit in depth into the fertility.
Yeah, so we used to be a big anhydrous farm. Everything was anhydrous. But now with rules and regulations going behind the anhydrous and how much danger there is in the public perception, it's been harder and harder to keep doing that. So if it is a good fall and we have time, we will try and just use our Concord air seeder and put dry fertilizer and anhydrous down in the fall. But we've gone to more of a dry setup, whereas if we can't put it down in the fall, it'll get floated on and then harrowed in after or before we get the canola in the ground, depending how it works out and what kind of spring is. Because, I mean, you guys all know that you can plan for one thing and you can just have an absolutely backwards spring, and it's just like, well, we got no other choice. We got to get that on and get that done. But so we've gone more to dry. And then we have a liquid setup on the planter so that we can do, your 4 or 5 gallons per acre of 1034 or whatever in furrow, just to kind of help it out in its beginning stages.
Okay. And you led us in the next question here, Concord. So that must be also used when you guys grow like your cereal or barleys. That's what the Concord gets used for?
Yeah, so the Concord is pretty much just for our cereals. That's what I grew up using all the time. So that was like commonplace to me. And then I remember when we got the planter, I felt like I was in a spaceship and I didn't know what I was doing. Now that I'm used to it, the planter is way easier and way more comforting to run because you can see your rows and what they're doing. Whereas in the Concord, if that thing in the back on the cart is spinning, you're probably putting seed in the ground. But you also just got to trust it a little bit. But yes, we use the Concord for our cereals, which my dad does barley, and then we do oats and wheat, and that's kind of it, I think.
So what kind of Concord? Like what year or make or model or size? Just give me the sizes, I guess.
It's I don't remember the year. It's a 1037, so 10-inch spacing, 37 foot. We used to run 2 of them with a, I think, 300 bushel cart behind it, maybe 340 with 2 tanks. And that is what we've been using for a long time. They work fantastic in the Red River Valley, like where we are, because the Packer wheels are actual wheels, not just like hard rubber or metal. So they shed mud extremely well, which allows us to go in wetter conditions than like a 3-inch Packer on a Borgo or whatever might. But the Concord is always considered to be, we're going to make the best of a bad situation because they're not individually adjustable rows. So you kind of got to ballpark it and say, well, this row's on top of the dirt, so we got to go a little bit farther, and then those couple are going to be a bit too deep, but it is what it is.
Yeah. And you're not, how's your terrain of your land? Are you a little bit flatter or got some hills or?
We are extremely flat and square, and I am very thankful for that. I love that. I've seen some people's TikToks.
This podcast.
What?
Square.
Yeah, I know. I've seen some bad maps on TikTok of people like they got a quarter or a half section and they can hardly use auto steer at all.
That's how my land is here in this area. Fortunately, we've been able to clean a lot of that up and be able to farm right through just with how our farming practices have improved. But there is a lot of guys in my area where it is very potholy, and there's a lot to go around, but that's just how it is in my area. We go from flat to hilly to potholy.
Yeah, and I think Dallas and Did you have a wet year last year or 2 years ago, and you lost a bunch of acres just from water?
Yeah, well, my brother's stuff over south of Limerick, it has a lot of hills, but it doesn't drain. Like the hills all just flow into sloughs, and on a wet year or a fast, quick melt in the spring, you end up with just a pile of sloughs. Or over the main part of the farm, over the Glentworth area and stuff, it doesn't hold a lot of water. It's hilly, but it drains. It all drains into the creek and river system and goes out of here. So usually that's why I say snow is basically useless to me, because it just, once the ground is frozen, and come spring when you're frozen ground and your snow melts, it just runs off and takes some
Yeah,
topsoil with it, and just you get angry and mad and life goes on. But we don't
yeah,
doesn't soak in as much as a guy would want to. It's great for this area. I mean, this RM, which is a rural municipality, which is similar to a county, this RM is probably at, I'd gonna go 50-50. I don't know the numbers for sure, between ranch land and farmland. So, and we have cattle, not many of them. But we have cattle, and we have quite a bit of pasture land. So we need them milts and quick runoffs in the spring to fill our dugouts. We have some dugouts that are only filled with just surface water. They don't have any springs in them. They get filled full by a runoff, and that is it. Their runoff
wow,
water. So yeah, everybody farms. That's why when Tyler and I were kicking this idea around, like all across Canada, North America, it is so different. And again, we're only about 4 hours. I'm about 4 hours to Tyler. Tyler's 4 hours to you, but we are vastly different in them 4 hours of what we can grow, what works, what doesn't work. Is just mind blowing. I watch a lot of stuff in the States, and a lot of it is pretty the same. We're going to
yeah,
grow corn, we're going to grow soybeans, and we're going to throw in winter wheat every once in a while. And that's it. That's all, folks. And up here, I mean, we can grow corn and we can grow soybeans, and we also grow durum and wheat and barley and oats and canola. And I could go on and on and on and fill the next 45 minutes of this podcast of the different crops that we grow in, Western Canada.
yeah, yeah. It is very interesting how much it changes. Um, and back to the hilly or the flat area, I guess. So we look very flat, and I guess we are pretty flat. You can look across from 1 mile to the next, like the section that I live on. You would look from this road to the next mile road, and you'd think it's perfectly flat. But if you stood on my mile, you would be 7 feet higher above than the next mile over. So there is some elevation, but it all looks flat. But that's where ditching is a huge thing for us. That is probably one of the best return on investments that a guy in our area could do, is running a ditcher. Do you guys run ditchers?
I've made ditches to drain some sloughs and other sloughs, but I've just done that with like a scraper and like a 6-way blade or whatever, just to make. I've wanted to try and get a demo on like a big rotary ditcher. I just don't know how well it will handle some of my rocks and stuff. I'd have to do more research.
No, okay.
I've talked to some reps, and they've been thinking, talking, maybe bringing me out there. I'm like, what if I destroy it? I'm like, well, then it wasn't built heavy enough. So, but yeah, not yet. But that's cool too, the ditching, because 7 feet. I mean, I can go up and down 7 feet in 10 feet.
Yeah,
Spots.
yeah,
My area, all the drainage is basically done with scrapers and bulldozers. There's way too much stone. You wouldn't go 2 feet and you'd have the thing smashed. Like
yeah. Well, and I
we
should
got
correct
rocks.
myself. We use a scraper on our farm, for making ditches and stuff. But like every year, you see guys out there with scrapers in all their fields.
Yeah, no, and that's a common practice across the prairies. Oh, and a lot of people are against it. And me personally, I don't have a problem with it as long as you're not screwing up your neighbor's land. If you can work with the neighbor and get that water gone, I don't see a problem with it if it's managed properly.
True, yeah, because I mean, the last thing you want to do is piss somebody else off.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And our RM has done a lot recently in improving the main ditches and the big creeks and all that. So water in our area flows very well.
But back to the land, how available, and I don't have to ask you, I mean, you don't have to say exactly what you pay, but how available is land out there, and what is like some of the values, like of rent or just a ballpark rent price and a ballpark if land trades ownership, like what's it trading for? Like, I'm sure it's vastly different than what I am too.
Yeah, well, and like so the last couple of years, I would say things have been changing pretty quickly with land prices and rent. And it always seems like everybody heads north. So the guys who are paying $200 in Steinbach will come over here and be paying $150 where I am. And then maybe we'll head towards, farther north and we'll be paying 110 or 125. But I'd say average land rent is probably in the 125 to 150 bucks an acre in our area. And if you're buying land around here, I think I've heard maybe 6,000 an acre, something like that.
That's crazy compared to where I am. Right in my area, we're anywhere from 1,200 to about 3,000 an acre, and right at the top of land rent is about that. Right at the top is $100 an acre, and to get that $100 an acre, it has to be good land. The average that I've heard, because we don't rent a lot of land on our farm, we own 99% of it, is around that $80 to $90 an acre.
And out here, our rent is I've heard of guys as low as 50, and I've also heard of some guys bragging that they're getting into the low 90s. But everybody's a little bit different. But you don't go far away from where I'm at. You go north an hour up to Grauberg, or you go east an hour towards Assiniboia, and I know they're well over 100, and their land values are probably, it sounds stupid to say, but they're probably in that $4,000 an acre range. We're in this area here, doubtful much will trade in this RM for anything even close to 2,000 an acre.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting, and it seems like we are in a fairly competitive area. There is lots of farms in the area between 5 to 10,000 acres, and people want land. And if there's land coming up for rent or whatever, I mean, even if it's a pretty terrible piece, people will bid it up with the landlords or whatever. It's a competitive area, I think.
Well, they're not making any more of it.
Well, that's exactly it.
But it makes me almost wonder sometimes. They're saying, oh, it's older farmers, older farming population, less farmers, but yet, I don't know, it's our own greed or mentality. We fight over every last acre, almost it seems like, because they keep talking, oh, the farming men population is older, with exception to you young bucks. They're getting older, and who's going to farm this land? Which obviously you guys will. But I mean, and the farms are growing, and mainly ourselves. I mean, when I come home in 97, we were, right around 2,000 acres. I doubt we were even that in 97. And I think Dad had 40 cows then, and we got all the way up to 160 cows, and now I don't say the exact acres, but we're over that 10,000 acre mark of farmland and 11 cows. Dad calls them his edibles.
Yeah. No, that's
on your farm,
Matt. Not on the farm side of thing, but my wife is from a farm. Like, her side of the family, they are all cattle guys. And so I'm a grain farmer, grew up a grain farmer. And I married my wife. And now we personally, for our own little hobby farm, we've got goats and horses and chickens. We've had pigs. But no, we don't have anything specifically for the farming operation.
How many horses? I see in a video there you were feeding some horses the other day with an antique.
Antique, yeah, that was the first tractor I ever built or ever bought. I love that tractor. But yeah, we've got 3 horses.
Tell us about that first tractor.
Yeah, so when we moved to the yard we're on now, we got the horses here, and I knew that I needed to move snow because it's a pretty big yard, and I needed to be able to move a round bale every couple weeks. But being a young guy, freshly married, I didn't have a whole lot of budget, so the qualifications for that tractor were that it had to be able to lift a round bale, and it had to have semi-decent power steering. And so the way I determined that was I put the truck that I had at the time on the scale at the farm. I just backed up the back end on the scale, and it weighed 2,000 pounds. And so I knew if the tractor that I went to look at could pick up my truck on the back, then I knew it could move a round bale, and I was probably going to buy it. So I bought that tractor 5 years ago for like $1,500, and it has been a fantastic, cheap tractor.
What is it for a tractor?
It is a Massey Ferguson Super 90. It's a gas job, like 60 horsepower, and we've used it actually a ton on the farm as well for pulling around in hydrous tanks or cleaning snow or something gets a little stuck or whatever. So it's been a handy tractor to have.
$1,500, very well spent, I say.
Absolutely. I figured if it dies on me the day after, I could take it to the shredder and probably get my money out of it.
And that's one thing I noticed was watching your channel. Like, it's not new. I mean, you know, but it works, and you make it work, which is a key in order to survive. Is, yeah, I wish I could afford to run all brand new, you know, swear word, John Deere equipment and be fully warranted and fully green starred. But economically, that is not going to happen. On this farm, we couldn't stay surviving that way. So we got to run the older iron, and a lot of the times that older iron is so much better built for longevity than this new garbage is.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It is hard to picture the tractors of this era lasting as long as the tractors from the 70s and the 80s and the 90s.
Well, exactly. I don't think you're going to see one of these brand new 620 XRs or whatever the John Deere ones are. You're not going to see one of them when it's staring down 50 years old still going out there. It'll be the plastic will have rotted off of it. The DEF system will be completely tore out of it 6 times over, and the track system will be trashed, and they just won't make that longevity. They'll be clapped out and they'll be finished. They'll be gone. But you look over and that guy's got a 100-year-old 835 over there, still going, no paint left, you know, and still going. Where the longevity of the old Versatiles, you know, that's what I cut my teeth on too, was an old 835, is phenomenal. I mean, you keep them up, especially now if a guy's more and more big sheds, you keep them inside, out of the sun, out of the wind, out of the rain, out of the elements. That tractor will just keep rewarding you over and over and over again, where I don't think that new stuff is going to be so good to you in the future. Yeah, the new stuff's going to be better on fuel and have hydraulics that'll lift a small building if they wanted to. But when it comes to just horsepower to the ground, well, you're right in the heart of it. You're at Winnipeg. You're in versatile country.
Yeah, we are. I like those old tractors, and I like having a couple just regular old 4-wheel drives on the yard, because you're not scared to drive them from field to field, put a bunch of miles on them. They just move, and they're pretty cheap. Whereas we've got some of these 2-tracks, and they're fantastic in the field. Maybe not if it's a bit wet, but it makes you think twice, like, do you really need to road this thing? Do we really need to take it down there? Maybe we'll get down there and we'll do that section all in one. So it is nice to have just some of that cheaper horsepower, just that can kind of rip around field to field, do some deep tilling, do some disking. It's nice to have those. And yeah, we love the Versatiles, and they were built in Winnipeg, or created, I guess.
And that's what drew me to your channel a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when I started watching your stuff there. We have the same Cat Challenger 765C. The only difference is mine's an ultra wide and yours is probably a standard width. And you had a video there, and I was watching, oh, that tractor looks like mine. And then you did a view from inside of it, and I had to laugh to myself. Your dash also doesn't work half the time, because all of your gauges are just laying over flat, dead to the left, not working. And on mine, half the time they're like that, and you reach over and you do the Arthur Fonzarelli and smack it outside the dash, and they all come back to life. It's like, yep. Imagine that in 50 years from now, after things been smacked 9,000 times and turned the gauges back on, it'll be garbage.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You got to give it that good smack, and then it'll come back.
So the one thing I notice is you run a lot of cat equipment, and in my area, you don't see any of that. Is the reason you run a lot of cat equipment is you have a good dealer to deal with, or it was just the right deal at the right time, and that's just what you ended up accumulating?
Yeah, so our farm, and me specifically and my brother, we are not loyal to any brand. If it looks like a good deal and it's going to do what we want in the field, we're going to buy it. How we ended up with these 2-tracks, I think the Cat Challenger 2-tracks are better built than the John Deere ones, and I really like how they're laid out. I think they're a bit of a better 2-track, so that's how we ended up with those. And then we have the 2 Cat combines, which are really just Claas combines that have been painted for North America to be a Cat combine. And
have cat motors in there, right? In the Claas combines?
Yes. Yeah, they do. They both have C13s in them. But yeah,
any of the Claas ones have cat motors in them that are deckled Claas, or they went back to something else?
Yeah, no, all the way up until the green ones. So 2019, all those Claas Lexians, like the 780, 760, all of those have. Well, no, so the 760 still has a C13 in it up to 2019, I believe. The 780 had a Mercedes V8 in it, I think. But then all the new ones, they have MAN inline 6s in them. But they've been running Cat engines for a while.
Oh, sorry to cut you off then. Let's go back to the rest of your fancy machinery.
Yeah, well, and so we ended up with those Claas combines because me and my brother, in our second year of farming, we knew we needed to change out of those TR99s that my dad had been running. And you start looking around, and the bang for your buck and what you're able to get done for how much it costs to buy a combine, those Claas really just stuck out to me, and they had a reputation for being very well built. And like if you look at a 9770 John Deere, it's going to do a couple less acres per hour, but they cost just as much as a 595 would, and you're not going to get tracks or four-wheel drive. And in our area, we are wet, and a lot of the times those tracks and four-wheel drives help a ton.
And one thing I noticed, when you do sunflowers, you're doing it right around Christmas time. So a lot of the time you're fighting with snow and whatnot. So is that another reason why you aim towards a four-wheel drive combine?
The four-wheel drive was always just nice to have. That was kind of like if you bought a 595R with tracks, it just automatically came with four-wheel drive, which was a nice bonus. But the main reason we wanted to go to tracks is that when you're harvesting, less when it's frozen, but you know, in September or October or even August, even if it's dry, I mean, those wheeled combines and big grain carts are making massive ruts or compaction lines in the fields. And so we wanted to kind of shift over our harvest equipment to tracks so that we would do a lot less damage in the field. And it was a very noticeable difference when we did that.
So staying on the topic of sunflowers there, you had a video where you had an old John Deere combine that you had dragged away to a wrecker. You said you've had 2 combines burn up on your farm. And in those cases, was both times harvesting sunflowers? Because people don't know sunflowers are very flammable.
Yeah, so there was a ton of oil content in the dust, and it likes to cake itself on the engine, on the manifold, and then it'll start smoldering, and that thing can smolder for hours, and the engine fan will just start slowly blowing the smoke or the ashes and embers around. And so we've come to, you know, if the grain cart's passing a combine, you're smelling for smoke, and we've always got water and fire extinguishers on hand. But every single time we've lost a combine, it has been from sunflowers because they just like to go up in flames. And every single year that we do sunflowers, a combine will be smoldering, but they don't always get lost to fire. That's pretty rare. But you're always paying attention for that smell of smoke, and then you know to get out and start looking.
So what's your maintenance like on a combine, per se, preventative-wise, when you're doing sunflowers? Like, do you wash them down every day, blow them off every couple hours?
Yeah, so it's... when we're doing sunflowers, it's just blowing them off, and we're blowing them off. It's hard to do the washing it down thing because if it's frozen or very cold, often everything's just going to get iced up, and that's really not ideal for when you're shutting it off and trying to start again in the morning early. But if you can just
do is stuff that in your shed. I'm going to put that combine, that's probably going to burn, in my heated shop so I can wash it tomorrow. They don't want to do that.
Yeah, but it's definitely, some varieties of sunflowers also, they just like to burn more. So you kind of start to figure out, what the crop is going to do. But yeah, it's like every 4 to 6 hours you could be blowing it off. Just keeping the dust off of it is pretty much what you can do to help.
Right. And my experience with sunflowers is eating them out of a bag. So is sunflower dust very itchy, or is it very similar to canola dust?
It's not itchy. No, it's oily. It's very interesting, sunflowers, because they got like a very interesting stalk to them. But we do not grow sunflowers for the spits market. We do oil seeds, because the confectionaries that are for like spits, they've just got such high standards and regulations. You can grow a crop, and if that seed isn't the perfect size, well, then they're not going to take it, and then you're stuck with something that's pretty much worth nothing because no one else wants it.
I got to go back to the old sunflowers and harvest and fires and stuff. Bobby, you can't answer this question, but maybe somebody in the comments on this podcast can. Is the insurance on your combine higher if you're doing sunflowers? Like, I know conventional combines are cheaper to insure for, like, rock damage than a rotary is. I just wonder if you're checking the boxes and I'm combining sunflowers, are your premiums going to go through the roof on your combine, or I want some new combines, should I be planting sunflowers?
You should be planting sunflowers. Yeah. No, I don't think that it affects how much you're paying for your insurance. I could be way off base though on that because I'm not the numbers guy on the farm. But obviously every time you make a claim, and depending how expensive it is, then it can affect your premiums that way. But I don't think you're paying more because you harvest sunflowers.
And then back to some of the other crops you're growing. You said you're growing corn. When you harvest your corn, are you taking it off wet and drying it, or do you wait till it's dried down and harvest it dry?
So we've grown corn twice. We wanted to try it. We didn't grow corn last year because the market didn't look very good, and corn in our area didn't produce very well, so it was a good decision. But we generally have taken it off wet, right around that 20% mark. We have a small little dryer on our farm, which allows us to maybe harvest 40 acres a day, and then our wet bin will be full, and then we dry. But yeah, I think with corn, and maybe we just run older headers so they're not as good on the corn, but I've noticed the drier the corn gets, then it butt shells way more, and then your header losses are going up, and it just drives you crazy to look at the ground and see so many kernels on the ground. So I think it makes more sense for us to harvest it a bit wetter, and then you're not shattering as much cob.
So you said butt shelling there for us, and including myself, that don't know anything about corn. What is butt shelling?
Yeah, so it's got the snap rolls underneath that pull the stalk down, and then the cob will hit your deck plate on your header, and when that cob is yanked down and hits the deck plate, it will butt shell because it's dry. So the wetter it is, the less it's going to shell out the bottom of the cob that's hitting the header when it's yanked down to strip that cob off. So that's kind of butt shelling.
Economically, it works better to take it off at 20 or a little higher and damp, and not shell as much versus taking off a 15, but then you'll end up losing so many bushels per acre, and you'll make more money if you dried it versus waiting for it to be dry. Very unique way, because that's way different than we ever think over here.
Yeah, and I mean, it depends on, your propane costs, your electrical to run your dryer, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I would say it makes more sense for us to get a couple extra bushels in the tank and then have to do some drying. Then in here also, like in our area, I mean, if you're waiting for it to be dry, you can wait a long time for it to get there. And then while you're waiting for it to dry in the field, you're also losing test weight because it kind of cannibalizes itself and the kernels shrink up a bit more. So there's a bunch of ways to look at it. And we're not big in the corn, so I'm not going to pretend that I know all of it. But I think from what we thought, it made more sense to do it a bit wetter. And you get a few more bushels off the field.
You could lie to me about that one, because you forgot more about this than I will ever know from the sounds of it. 'Cause that's just out of. I learned my corn from TikTok and YouTube, because obviously Bunnyhug Farmers on Spotify. Shameless plug. But yeah, it's so unique, and again, not that overly far away.
Yeah, and that's the thing about being your own boss and doing your own thing. I mean, we're all passionate about what we do, right? So we enjoy it and we like to learn about it. And if you're not growing corn, then doesn't make much sense other than for the enjoyment to figure it out or whatever. But when I'm sitting in that combine and I'm combining away and this is my field and I'm seeing those kernels on the ground, it's like, man, what can we do to make this better? Because that's money that I'm losing.
Someday, I will combine corn. I will either go to your place or down in the States. Last year I made a video, and I got offers, and I thank all the people that offered me. I just never could make it. To go down there and combine corn. Because the idea of combining away and something being eye level with you in a combine, and then just disappearing into the header and, becoming corn, obviously. I just want to see that once, because it just, I combine lentils that are 8 inches high. So the idea of looking straight forward and seeing what I'm doing sounds way better than scraping the ground. But back to being unique and being your own operation and trying new and different things. My dad started growing lentils. I think his first year was 87 or 88 growing lentils. And there was no such thing as land rollers or nothing like that. You'd harrow and you pick the rocks and you'd swath them. But, always farmers in general are always trying to adapt and go forward, because you said, I'm going to farm like Grandpa did forever, and I'm half and half summer fallow and wheat. Well, you're broke and you're not in business anymore. You've sold out. Your farm hasn't, moved on. But us farmers, planters, lentils, corn, sunflowers, we're always adapting to the next thing that hopefully will keep the farm, sustainable and going forward all at the same time.
Shifting gears here, one thing you do on your TikTok, Matt, is you get a lot of people that call you out about a lot of the maintenance and stuff you're doing, and you're not scared to fire back at them.
I love them videos. I love the rebuttal videos.
Like, you're not scared to tell somebody, this is how it is and this is how I'm doing it. Frig off.
Absolutely. And that's a big thing. I think all of us posting TikToks or whatever it is, I mean, every time we make a video, we're putting ourselves out there for everyone to judge us and how we do it. But I think farmers in general don't do enough maintenance, don't do enough preventative maintenance, and we're all maybe a little bit cheap. But I think that, if someone's got a different opinion than me, I want to hear it. I would like to learn from them maybe, or see what they're doing wrong. But just having the TikTok and getting the amount of information that I can get from the community, it is amazing. And yeah, if you guys are gonna comment on or whatever, I'm gonna give you my 2 cents. And I'm glad to hear that you guys like that, because I don't know if I always should be firing back at these people or whatever, but it's interesting, and it's a lot of times people with no videos, no profile picture, no username. So it's like, well, let me know what you think. Put yourself out there a little bit.
Exactly. And I've got that too, but the one day I was waiting there, I was unloading grain, and there's a bit of a lineup, and I got going through my TikTok, and, so I did a calling of the herd, and I was like, oh, crap, I keep deleting people. I'm going to be less than 40,000 followers here, because it's like, you don't sound, like somebody I want to have follow me, or you've just clicked on me, but you're never actually a real follower. I want to have followers that are truly involved, and either they want to know or they know something about agriculture, but not just to click on me and never actually watch one of my videos. That's not a follower. That's just a wasted space on my channel.
Yeah, I would agree. And I don't know if you guys know who Gary Vee is, but he always says that if you're posting content, don't post it in hopes that you're going to get something from your followers. Post content that you're going to provide value to them. And I really I want to inspire the next young generation of mechanics and farmers who want to do this sort of thing and show them that they can. And that's kind of really where I'm coming from on my page and what I'm trying to do.
And that's one thing I've noticed. You always try to stay positive in your videos. Just, well, this broke. This is how I'm going to fix it, and I'm going to enjoy doing it, because If I don't enjoy doing it, I'm not going to do it to the best that I can do it.
And you're also showing, I mean, I was into one of your lives a while ago, and yep, the shop that you were working out of is your shop. It doesn't have a floor, not a heated floor. It doesn't have a floor. It's got a dirt floor, you know. And obviously none of us can get to the stage we're at without family help. But you're also showing that you don't need to have a $2 million shop, and to get to that where you're at. You've said many times before that you had a hired man on your dad's farm that was a mechanic, and that was the best thing ever for you, was being trained by a mechanic on how to work on that stuff and do that maintenance.
Yeah. I am just incredibly grateful to have a heated shop at my place, to work, that I don't have to drive anywhere. So the fact that it's got a dirt gravel floor in it, I mean, I make do, and it really doesn't bother me all that much, other than we have to run dehumidifiers because there's higher moisture. So we do have to do something about that, but it doesn't bother me. But yeah, having that mechanic work for the farm who had 20 years experience, he just showed me a whole nother aspect of being a mechanic from someone who had done it forever and had so much knowledge that he didn't show me, like, he showed me a bunch of little procedures and all these things, but it was more just the aspect of seeing how he approached every day, how he approached every piece of equipment, and just went through it. It shifted my mindset on being a mechanic so much that I will for always be grateful for that.
So you're in your brother's farm. You guys are in the same yard, right? How far away is that from, like, your dad's operation?
It's like 20 miles. So we're kind of tip to tip, but then it's nice because we've got a shop at either side of the farm. So if something breaks down at my side, we pull it in my shop. We got oil, welder, all that stuff. Whoever breaks down near his yard, same deal. So it's been very beneficial, and we farm separately together. So me and my brother have our own farm. My dad has his own farm. But we put our equipment and costs of equipment kind of over everyone's acres, because if I can do more acres with my combine, the cost per acre goes down. So it's been a very beneficial setup now that we've kind of established ourselves as our own farm.
That's a great way to have a farm set up. You're helping each other, but you're doing your own thing. You can spread the equipment out, and like you said, it lowers your cost per acre across both farms. And more dollars in your pocket is much better than it being pissed away on a bigger machine and a higher cost per acre.
I would agree, and it's interesting. Me and my brother like to try new things. So my dad had run TR99s and 96s and 95s. He ran those twin rotors for years. And me and my brother bought that 595R, and the next year he went out and bought the exact same combine because he was so impressed with it. So it's fun that we get to try new things, and then he sees, hey, maybe that's a great thing, and he'll implement some of that as well.
And I have to give almost forgiveness to ask forgiveness for your brother, because he's also fairly big on social media. Not quite as big as you are, but I was actually watching his videos and your videos, and all of a sudden it dawned on me, these guys are talking about the same piece of machinery. They're saying, they're brothers, because and when you're going through TikTok, it just scroll, swipe, and it's all of a sudden, these guys got the same trucks. That's the same truck you guys are safetying or driving or whatever was going on. It's like the light bulb went on. Oh, yeah. But you guys, your TikTok channels are quite a bit different from each other. Your brother's more the operator and on the trucking side, and you're the maintenance man, and you're both farming together. But it was kind of neat. I was following you both without knowing you both were the same farmer. So the next time, I guess we'll have to throw your brother in here and we'll get his version of how the farm started.
It would be very interesting. He's definitely the numbers guy, and I'm also really thankful to be farming with him because he makes me better with my money. He's always been very money conscious, wants to be a business owner, and cares about the numbers and that sort of stuff. So it's been such a great setup, because you often hear about brothers or siblings who want to farm together, but they have the same interests. And that is very hard when you're both trying to be in the same lane. Whereas me and my brother have very different lanes that we're in. We work very well together, and I think that also is very big help to what we're doing.
And he's in the same yard as you?
He lives at the main yard near the city, but we kind of operate our farm more out of my yard here. This is where we built our bin. This is where we got our shop. That sort of thing.
Very cool. Give a shout out to your brother and his TikTok channel too, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. The Canadian farmer. He's actually the reason I got into TikTok, because he showed me that, you know, any old person can do it and get a following. So it's been fun doing it together with him, because then he also, if he sees me filming a TikTok, he doesn't think, man, get to work. What are you doing? He kind of understands that there's a bit more going on.
I've actually seen one of his videos where he's trolling you when you're making one of your TikToks. It looks like you're out in the yard dancing around, not doing what you're supposed to, and he's standing there laughing at you.
I've watched the same video.
Man, I swear for the next week I was filming a TikTok video or whatever, I always was looking over my shoulder. I thought he was going to be around. I thought that was hilarious, and he got me good there. He got me very good.
That's something neat that I've, you know, my dad and the hired man have gotten used to. I'm like, hey, you guys want to just be quiet in the shop here? I'm going to make a little video. And it's actually went over better than I thought it would when I first started doing this more, you know, more not secretly, like, you know, more out in the open and in the shop and with guys in the shop, and then, you know, it started off with me and Tommy, and then, you know, it's the other hired man and Dad. And I haven't had Dad in a video yet, but besides him running a tractor the one time, but, you know, that's something a guy just, and he's been good about it. Oh, you're gonna make a video? I'll be quiet. I'm like, you know, so he recognizes how much I enjoy doing this, and how, you know, how, I don't know what I'm exactly what I want to do it for. I just enjoy doing it. It's a hobby. It's my art. I mean, there's a few things that we want to promote with this podcast. Is, you know, farm safety, farm stress line is a massive one. You know, this is such a stressful business we're all in, that, you know, we have to look out for each other in this, and then there is tools out there available to us to go into and use if things are tough to handle. So.
Absolutely. In Manitoba here, I know it's called the Farmers Wellness Program. They give you up to 9 therapy sessions a year with certain therapists, which is also a great resource for people here, that if you're struggling with things on the farm, which is pretty common, just reach out and talk to someone about it.
Yeah. So the Manitoba Farm Crisis Line, the number, we're doing this for Matt. If you're a listener from Manitoba and you're a farmer and you're in a farm crisis and you need somebody to talk to, the number is 1-866-427-8628. There's no cost to it. It is a free service. If you need help, please reach out.
And these are all trained professionals. They're not there to judge you. They are there to help you. They're there to help you get through it, because, you know, the last thing we need to do is somebody that can't handle it and is too proud to reach out for help, making a drastic wrong decision. They're there to help you, and they're to help all of us, and that's what they're there for. And that's a huge thing that we want to do is, you know, we're a community. We're all in this together, and we're all looking out for each other. So, I mean, it's just like somebody breaks down on the side of the road, we're all going to stop to help. But sometimes, you know, if somebody's struggling at home, I can't go into your house and say, you know, I can help you get help. But if you're listening to this podcast, or you see some of our videos, and you go, you know, you can get help. You can get through it. We're all in this together. You're not alone. Is my big words that, you know, almost bring a tear to my eye when I think about some of the stresses that have gone through on farms and stuff, you know, caused by people not getting the help they needed. So don't worry about that. There's the number. Make a call if you need it. One more question here for you, Matt. Or I have lots, but I'm going to end this here soon. But you're lucky enough to farm, you know, basically on the outskirts of Winnipeg. So you're close to some big stores. Princess Auto has been a main realtor that you've bought a lot of stuff from, and a great warranty. And then for us out here, PV Mart, you know, you made a video that made me laugh a little while ago, saying that Princess Auto should just take over PV Mart. And if they don't take over PV Mart, or maybe they should take over, who should? I mean, who's going to step up and fill that gap once we lose our PV Marts?
Yeah, it's an interesting thought, and I made that video, and I said that Princess Auto should just buy PV Mart, or take over their stores, which would be nice for all you rural guys, because I don't have a hard time finding parts or tools necessarily being right near Winnipeg like I am. But a lot of people said that, something like that with having less competition isn't necessarily a good thing, which I can see that side of it as well. But I don't know what should happen necessarily with the PV Marts and all that's going on with it. I am far more interested in Princess Auto because I think their warranty is so good, and you can buy some pretty good tools there that's kind of my go-to for tooling, especially if there's a sale. That's when I'm going. And PV Mart was more of for the hobby farm side of things with the animals, but I always enjoyed it there. And I got my hardware there. So I got some leads on some hardware in other places, but I'm not sure what should happen with the PV Marts.
The one thing I'm going to miss with PV Mart, it was a good place to go get clothing. And in my area, we don't have a lot of selection for that. So in my area, PV Mart is going to be greatly missed.
Actually, sitting here thinking, I bought these pants here before Christmas. They're the PV Mart Canvas Noble pants, and they are tough as nails. And I went in there right after I made that video there, and they were sold right out. And I was almost PO'd because I was like, God damn it! Finally found a pair of work pants that didn't break the bank. I could buy them right in Assiniboia, right at PV Mart. They were tough as nails, and they were great. And now they don't have them, and they're probably not going to get any in. So I got to figure out where they got them from because, again, the clothing's going to be missed. I mean, what kind of store out here like ours sold Corel panels? They sold thousands of tons of cultivator shovels, clothing, animal supplies, dog food to Makita grinders. It seemed like PV Mart, and while you're checking out, well, shoot, there's beef jerky at the till. I mean, you were one-stop shopping.
That's the big thing. I would agree that the one-stop shopping was so nice about it. They have just about everything. You need a random belt size or a pulley for an auger or a couple pickup teeth for your square baler. They had just about everything, and that was the nice thing about going there.
Exactly, because a few years ago, a buddy of mine, we ran out to Brandon, and we picked up some. The wind caved in some hopper bottoms on the farm, so it was way cheaper for us to drive out there and pick up the panels and the bracing and the bracketry and the roof sheets and all that stuff ourselves and having them shipped out. And then we just hired a crew to do it. Got out there, we strapped everything down, and we used every chain and strap I brought. And it's like, I got a long ways to go home, and I don't like how my load's secure. So we wandered across Brandon. First store we aimed, PV Mart. On sale, not on sale. I bought a bunch more straps, and everything made it home. Just because I knew when I looked at the PV Mart, it will have what I wanted. And that's going to be, it's like, well, now where do I go? Like, do I want to go buy some overpriced John Deere straps, or where am I going to get straps or something like that? Is this co-op a hardware store or is this co-op a furniture store? That's where you knew PV Mart was going to have it, and it is going to be so missed out here. I hope, I think they call it in the States a North 40 or a Big R or a Tractor Supply, like hashtag one of them, buy out PV Mart, put your guys' stuff in there, and keep it rolling.
I would have to agree with you on that one, Dallas. Somebody definitely needs to step up to the plate and replace that because we're going to need it out here on the prairies. Like, we need that one-stop shop.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying our local co-ops aren't going to step up and fill that gap, but you just knew, no matter where you were, a PV Mart, if you're looking for any of those things, they're going to have it. And so it wasn't even a question. PV Mart will have it. And now it's like, I need where am I getting them tarp straps at? And it'd be a smaller store, bumper to bumper maybe, but PV Mart was going to have it. But we're running a little long here, folks. So I'd like to thank, especially this has been an excellent podcast. Matt come on here, Matt James of on TikTok, it's Matt Builds. They come on, take an hour away from his family and stuff. The shoot the whatever we're going to call it here with Tyler and I. We appreciate it. We're doing this because we want to, because we like to do it, and we just appreciate anybody that wants to come on and take some time out of their day to yak with us and have a little fun. and go from there. So thank you, Matt, and thank you, Tyler. And, I couldn't do it without the two of you guys, so I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. It was very fun, and I enjoy hearing how different farming can be even 4 hours away from where I am. So no, it's been good.
Matt, thank you for coming on. It's been a real honor.
Thank you, folks. I appreciate you guys tuning in to the Bunnyhug Farmers here on Spotify. Uh, you know, we're getting better. We got great guests. We have more great guests lined up. Thanks, folks, for listening. Tyler and I appreciate everything you've done and said about us. Uh, good or bad, we're having fun. And hopefully when guys are seeding away, and all of a sudden you want to listen to something, hopefully some of these episodes come to mind, or you share them with your buddies and say, hey, these guys know what they're talking about. Maybe. Or maybe these guys don't know what they're talking about. But whatever. As long as you're talking about us, that's good. So thanks, everybody. We appreciate it. And we'll talk to you later. And we're the Bunnyhug Farmers.